You have to realize there's a weight to your energy, a value to your presence, and a cost to your attention. And every time you step into a useless argument with someone who's not operating on your frequency, you're paying a price you don't even see yet. Some folks are professional provocateurs. They thrive on chaos. They stir the pot, not because they're hungry for truth, but because they're addicted to attention. And the moment you bite, the moment you engage, the moment you respond, they win. Not because they made a point, not because they had wisdom, but because they got your energy. They fed off your fire. There's a type of person that doesn't listen to understand. They listen to reply. They're not in the conversation to grow. They're in it to dominate, to win, to puff up their pride. And when you try to reason with them, all you're doing is playing tug of war with someone who doesn't even care about the rope. You see, fools don't need facts, they need fuel, and your words, your frustration, your logic, that's fuel to them. They don't care if they're wrong. They don't care if they look foolish. In fact, the more stirred up you get, the more satisfaction they feel. Because now you're pulled down into their arena. And the problem with stepping into their arena is that even if you're right, you look wrong just by being there. You lose your power when you argue with someone who doesn't respect wisdom. They're not seeking clarity, they're seeking control, and they'll twist every word you say, they'll move the goalpost, they'll change the topic, they'll make the issue about how you said it instead of what you meant. And before long, you're defending things you never even intended to say, wasting breath you didn't need to lose. You have to ask yourself, is this conversation helping me grow, or is it holding me back? Is this making me better, or is it dragging me down? Because every word you speak is an investment, and where you plant your words determines the fruit you'll harvest. When you speak to the wise, your words multiply. When you speak to the foolish, your words vanish. You don't gain anything. In fact, you leave emptier than you came. Fools thrive on drama. They thrive on attention. They thrive on the spotlight. And if you step onto their stage, they don't care what role you play. Hero, villain, teacher, enemy. It doesn't matter as long as you're part of their show. But you're not here to be a character in someone else's circus. You're not here to entertain ignorance or babysit bad behavior. You're here to walk in purpose. You're here to protect your peace. And peace doesn't argue. Peace doesn't explain itself over and over. Peace doesn't try to convince someone who refuses to listen. You gotta learn how to walk away, not with bitterness, but with wisdom. You gotta understand that silence is sometimes the loudest answer. That saying nothing doesn't mean you don't have a response. It means your response is too valuable for someone who won't honor it. There's a strength in staying quiet. There's a strength in saying, this is not worth my time. And that kind of strength takes discipline. Because pride wants to clap back. Ego wants to prove a point. Flesh wants the last word. But wisdom knows when to shut the door, when to protect the light, when to move forward without explaining why. There are people who will pull you into conflict because they don't know how to function without it. They will bait you with disrespect, challenge you with ignorance, and provoke you with nonsense. And the moment you engage, they'll pretend like they're the victim. That's the trap. That's how they operate. It's not about truth for them. It's about control, and you have to be sharp enough to recognize it before you get entangled. Have you ever tried to teach someone who wasn't ready to learn? It's like pouring water into a glass that's upside down. No matter how much you pour, nothing sticks. That's what arguing with a fool feels like. You keep thinking, if I just explain it better, if I just say it this way, if I just bring the right facts. But they're not upside down because they don't know better. They're upside down because they don't want to change. Their position isn't based on truth. It's based on ego, and ego doesn't care about growth. You don't argue with someone who already made up their mind. You don't debate with someone who values being right more than doing right, because when you do, you end up sacrificing your sanity to prove something to someone who was never listening in the first place. Don't do it. Don't lower yourself. Don't get dirty trying to clean someone else's mess. Don't lose your focus trying to fix someone else's blindness. Let them stay where they are. Let them walk in circles while you keep climbing. Because the higher you go, the less noise you hear. You don't see eagles fighting with pigeons. You don't see lions debating with hyenas. Why? Because purpose has no business entertaining petty. When you know who you are, when you're locked into your assignment, you don't have time to argue with someone who isn't even in your lane. You're focused, you're building, you're growing. And the moment you start stopping to respond to every bark, every shout, every challenge, you slow down your progress. There's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of power. Power doesn't need to shout. Power doesn't need to argue. Power doesn't need to defend itself every 5 minutes. Power knows its value. Power knows where it's going. And that's the kind of power you need to walk in. The power to say, I could argue, but I won't. I could respond, but I choose peace. I could fight this battle, but it's not worth my sword. You have to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You have to guard your peace like it's treasure, because it is. And you can't afford to waste either one on foolishness. Not everyone deserves your response. Not every argument deserves your entrance. And not every attack deserves your attention, because attention is currency, and the more you give it to things that don't serve you, the less you have for what actually matters. You're not called to convince everyone. You're not called to fight every battle. You're not called to correct every fool. You're called to be excellent. You're called to be focused. You're called to walk in power. And sometimes power looks like walking away. Sometimes power looks like saying nothing. Sometimes power looks like keeping your joy while the world tries to pull you into its storm. You can't build anything meaningful if you're constantly being pulled into meaningless debates. You can't rise if you're always being dragged back down, and you can't lead if you're always stopping to prove your worth. Let your life speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your success speak. And let the fools argue amongst themselves. Your calling is too big to be reduced to petty arguments. Your future is too bright to be dimmed by distractions. Your mind is too sharp to be dulled by ignorance. So don't engage, don't stoop, don't respond. Smile, breathe, keep it moving, because at the end of the day, fools shout for attention, but the wise walk in direction, and you don't need to shout when your life is already echoing purpose. The more you grow, the more you'll see how little arguing accomplishes. You'll realize that the people worth talking to don't require a fight to understand, and the ones who require a fight to understand aren't worth talking to, because wisdom listens, wisdom considers. Wisdom asks questions, foolishness interrupts, foolishness assumes, foolishness accuses, and no amount of logic can fix a heart that refuses to listen. So you rise, you elevate, you mature, and in that maturity you learn peace is priceless. Energy is limited, and fools are loud, but you're focused, you're disciplined, and you're too purpose, driven to be pulled into a fight with someone who doesn't even know what direction they're facing. Let them shout at the wind. Let them chase their own tail. You've got mountains to climb. You've got a legacy to build, and fools don't get a seat at that table. There's a certain peace that comes over your life when you finally stop feeling the need to explain yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe. That peace is power. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It's discipline. It's clarity. It's the realization that not everyone is worthy of access to your thoughts, your time, your space, or your emotions. Arguing with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you is like shouting into a storm and expecting it to calm down. It's not going to happen. All that yelling does is tire you out while the wind keeps howling. When you grow wiser, you start noticing how arguments are often traps dressed up as conversations. The tone might sound curious, but the intention is combative. Some people ask questions just to twist your answers. They're not seeking truth. They're seeking control. They want to confuse, not clarify. And when you sense that, you have to choose your response with maturity. Because responding to nonsense validates it. When you take time to argue with someone who isn't listening, you lend weight to their foolishness. You legitimize noise by reacting to it. And you've got too much purpose in you to be reacting all day long. Don't let your ego be manipulated by someone else's insecurity. They'll poke at you, they'll challenge you, they'll bait you with sarcasm, pride, or ignorance, hoping you take the hook, because once they get you to argue, now you look like them. Now you're standing in the same mud they live in, trying to stay clean. You can't win that way. The moment you get pulled into a foolish conversation, you've already lost something: your focus, your peace, your strength. Because arguing drains more than just time, it drains your clarity, and when your clarity is gone, your judgment gets cloudy, and when your judgment is cloudy, you make poor decisions. That's the trap. There are people who are addicted to being right, even when they're wrong. They'll twist the facts, dismiss logic, and mock wisdom just to protect their fragile sense of self. They'd rather believe a lie that flatters their pride than a truth that confronts it. And when you meet people like that, you have to realize you're not their teacher, you're their target. They don't want answers, they want attention. They don't want dialogue, they want dominance. So don't be fooled by the performance. Don't waste your breath on people who hear only what they want to hear. Some ears are closed not by accident, but by intention. Silence becomes your shield, because when you stay silent in the face of foolishness, you protect your dignity. You protect your purpose. You protect your growth. Silence doesn't mean defeat. It means elevation. It means you're no longer arguing on ground level. You're operating from a higher place, because higher ground doesn't yell back. Higher ground doesn't throw stones. It doesn't trade jabs. It stays still. It stays grounded, and that's where your power lies. Not in proving a fool wrong, but in proving your piece right. You see, your assignment is bigger than being understood by everybody. Your mission is more important than being agreed with. The noise around you can't stop you unless you give it your attention. Arguing with someone who refuses to grow is like watering a rock and expecting flowers. It's a waste of time, but more than that, it's a waste of your spirit, because your spirit is what fuels your purpose, and when you pour your spirit into conflict, you have less for your calling. Your time is a seed. Where you plant it determines what grows, and when you plant your time in conflict, you harvest confusion, but when you plant your time in peace, you grow wisdom. When you plant your time in purpose, you grow fruit. You can't afford to be distracted by every barking dog on the path. If you stop to throw stones at each one, you'll never reach the mountain. Let them bark, let them howl, let them scream, but you keep moving. You stay steady. You stay focused, because the goal is not to be loud. The goal is to be effective. The wise man speaks when it adds value. The fool speaks to hear himself talk, and you'll know the difference. Because when you're in the presence of the wise, the conversation feels like light. It illuminates, it reveals, it lifts. But when you're with a fool, everything feels heavier, darker, more chaotic. You feel drained afterward. That's how you know. And once you know, you stop volunteering your energy for spaces that don't nourish you. You stop giving your spirit to people who only know how to tear it down. You weren't built for arguments. You were built for impact. You were built to move, to build, to lead, to inspire. And every time you stop to debate with someone who refuses to rise, you delay your own elevation. It's like a rocket trying to explain lift. Off to the dirt it just left behind. You don't explain altitude to someone who's still comfortable crawling. You just go. You rise. You fly. And those who are meant to understand will catch up or watch in silence. There's strength in walking away. And not walking away angry. Walking away calm. Walking away clear. Walking away with your crown still on straight. Because the moment you start explaining your value to someone who doesn't even know what value looks like, you've already stepped out of your zone. Your zone is excellence, your zone is strategy, your zone is discipline, and fools don't thrive there. They can't breathe in that altitude, so don't invite them up. Let them stay where they are. Let them stay in their noise. In their circle, in their echo chamber, you've got new levels to reach. When you stop needing to be right all the time, you become free. Free from the trap of comparison. Free from the pressure to perform. Free from the fear of misunderstanding, because you realize you're not everyone's lesson. Some people have to hit rock bottom before they look up, and it's not your job to soften that fall. It's not your burden to carry their resistance. Let them learn their way, you walk yours. Let them spin in their own confusion, you walk in clarity. And here's the truth. Arguing is noise, but peace is direction, and you can't have both. If you choose the noise, you'll keep going in circles. If you choose the peace, you'll move forward. That's why you gotta protect your peace at all costs. You gotta treat it like treasure, because when your peace is solid, your choices are better, your creativity flows. Your intuition sharpens, your focus strengthens, but when you let chaos in, everything suffers. You can't lead in confusion, you can't love in chaos, you can't build in noise, you can't teach someone who values being loud more than being wise. You can't build with someone who thinks sarcasm is strength. You can't grow around people who treat arguments like entertainment. Let them go. Let the conversation die. Let the silence speak. Let your progress be your answer. Because the higher you go, the less talking you have to do. The fruit of your life becomes your voice, and that fruit can't be faked. Every minute spent arguing with a fool is a minute stolen from your future. You don't have to attend every conflict you're invited to. You don't have to clap back every time someone claps at you. Let the insecure bark at the light. Let the jealous spit at your rise. Let the loud brag while you build. Your silence doesn't mean you don't see. It means you choose peace over pride. And that choice takes maturity. Maturity is when you could destroy someone with truth, but choose to say nothing. Maturity is when you understand that not every fight is meant for you. Maturity is knowing your identity is not on trial just because someone doubts you. Let them doubt. Let them talk. You don't have to prove anything to anyone who's already determined to reject you. You just keep doing the work. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep shining, because time is the great revealer. Time will show who was wise. Time will show who was building and who was bluffing. And when that time comes, the ones who argued loudest will fade into silence, while the ones who walked in purpose will still be standing. Let that be you. Let your silence speak. Let your growth testify. Let your peace echo louder than any comeback ever could. Stay grounded, stay clear, stay above the noise, because when the foolish argue, they want the world to watch. But when the wise move, they let the results do all the talking. And results, they don't argue, they don't shout, they just show up and win. So when the noise rises, when the voices get loud, when the challenge comes wrapped in ego and ignorance, stand still, breathe. Remember who you are. You are not here to trade wisdom for noise or to throw pearls at confusion. You are here to walk in purpose, to live with discipline, and to protect your peace like the future depends on it, because it does. Let the fools shout at shadows, let them dance in circles of their own pride, but you keep walking forward, keep building in silence, keep shining with strength, because when the dust settles and the noise fades, only one thing will still be standing: truth. And the ones who carried it didn't have to argue for it, they just lived it. Let that be you.